I looked at an article earlier on that identified the divergence in Rotten Tomatoes critics and audience scores, and they have never been further apart on average, according to the data science that was done by this. So, as an example, critics loved and audiences loathed Star Wars The Last Jedi, which was 49% divided, and audiences loved and critics loathed Venom, which was 51% divided. In 2022, the gap between audience and critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes has become bigger than ever. Audiences have given the top 10 movies on average score more than 19 points higher than critics, by far the biggest difference this century. The only two of this year's 10 movies where audiences and critics are even close was Top Gun Maverick and The Batman. What do you think that says about the state of modern movies?
I think they're not making people happy. I think people are watching them and they're coming away fundamentally unsatisfied. And the critics that I guess they used to kind of trust because they would generally agree on movies, because I think the actual quality of films was better about 10, 20 years ago. Now they're diverging because they're beginning to realize that these critics that they used to trust are basically just paid to give positive reviews. And, it's in their interest to be positive because it allows them to keep getting access to film premieres, to getting all those little lovely goodie baskets and stuff that studios send you if you're a professional critic. That's what they go on. And so there's now this realization of, wow, these people are really full of crap and I can't trust their opinions on anything. And so, I'm glad that it's finally happened. I'm glad people have woken up to, really how rotten that entire industry is. I think Rotten Tomatoes is a good term for it.
There is a situation, though, when critics are poorly reviewing films and the audience is reviewing a film well. So this isn't a case of the critics cozying up to some studio. What's going on there?
I think in those cases, it may be a case of ideological persuasion, in that generally when that happens...
In the movie world, surely not.
Who would have thought? I think generally when that happens, it's a case of a movie which doesn't align with the current ideology of Hollywood. And audiences generally lap that up because, most people are just... They're not left-wing, they're not right-wing, they're just in the middle. And when they go to the movies, they just want to be entertained. That's all they want. And when they get a movie that gives them that, they generally love it. But then the critics... They don't love it because it's not spouting the ideology that they've been taught that they have to agree with and that they have to promote at any cost. And so that's generally when that happens.
It's interesting, right? Because movies for a long time were a good vehicle that could be used to put forward an important social movement narrative. It was a way of communicating to the masses in a entertaining and subtle way that this is something that you might have to think about. But it does seem more and more flagrant, more and more mask off, less subtle, and more almost like being flagellated, like being whipped by the film.
I don't get it. In a lot of cases, I don't get why people would want to watch them. It's what can I liken it to? I suppose the classic example is something like The Last Jedi from Star Wars. If you go watch that, it's like, I guess I just have to accept now that all white men are just awful at everything and they suck, and that's just that, myself included. So I should just hang my head in shame for the rest of my life. It's a strange, sort of offering that they're giving us now, where we're going to actively hate you as a art form. We're going to make it our business to make you feel awful about yourself. And if you dare to push back on that and reject the offering that we're giving you, then we label you as a bigot or a reactionary or whatever, stupid term we label people with these days. There's no actual engagement with criticism anymore, and it's a frustrating thing. But then again, I feel like more and more people are just kind of seeing through that now. They've like you say, the mask is off, and it's becoming very obvious how biased and tilted in one direction it is. I think that TV show that came out recently, Velma. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's like this weird attempt to reboot the whole Scooby-Doo thing that we watched when we were kids. The kids' cartoon. now it's told from the point of view of Velma, and it's all about like every character has been race swapped. Everyone's gay now. The only character that's been kept as a white guy is Fred, who's now the butt of every single joke. He's an idiot. He can't do anything for himself. All that stuff, and it's like a parody of the kind of messages that they were putting out, a few years ago. But it's so over the top and ridiculous that it's like every person from every side of the argument is hating on it. I just think it's really funny.
Well, I mean, if you were a well-meaning, moderate, left, liberal person, and this was the popular media that was supposed to represent your side, I would be so ridiculously embarrassed. It's worse to have your point of view or your side of the aisle be misrepresented by this, like, woke. It's like a parasite that's just embodied what used to be quite a loved institution. Scooby-Doo was legendary, right? When we were kids, Scooby-Doo was pretty legendary.
it was just innocent fun, and I think that's what people took it as. And now it's like, God, from what I've heard, because I only watched the first couple of episodes and I was done. But even then, it's like it's got 15-year-old girls in the shower room, like full on nude. It's got like Velma, who's like again the same age, in a strip club. It's like, what are you showing us? What are you doing with this? And it's like, I have to question the mindset of the people who have written this and created it, and the executives that signed off on it. This has got to be borderline. This is really distasteful stuff now. And it's like, this all came from a goofy kids TV show from the 1970s about like bunch of college students that went around solving mysteries. Like, why are you doing this?
Well, we've seen the same thing with She-Hulk, right? That was sort of pretty mask off in terms of how that got repurposed. And the worst one that I've seen recently was Doctor Strange 2. I watched that on a plane before anybody on YouTube had chance to do a summary explaining why I shouldn't watch it, even on a plane. And I got sideswiped by, I watched a little bit of She-Hulk and then bailed out, but I watched all of Doctor Strange 2 because I was literally trapped in a tin box flying at 35,000 feet. But
you'll watch pretty much anything when you're on a long-haul flight, won't you?
Correct. But I mean, it's the same tenor with that, right? I don't know. It's just not. It doesn't feel subtle anymore. There's no progression to the characters, especially if they're female or from a minority. And this is something that I really enjoyed talking to Baggage Claim about, which is that it patronizes women because it basically makes them out to be incapable of ever dealing with any challenge. They can't overcome anything. They are perfect as they are. I mean, there's a moment in Doctor Strange 2 where zombie Benedict Cumberbatch goes back in time to tell America Chavez, the South American daughter of two women, that she just needed to believe in herself all along.
That is the running theme when it comes to these female characters, and it's such an unhealthy message to send to people. Even like taking our personal opinions out of the equation, that it's like, trying to make out that women are just perfect at everything, which, we're all human. None of us are perfect. It's teaching people that you shouldn't need to strive to improve yourself. You shouldn't need to struggle. And when you come across challenges or adversity, the rest of the world just needs to accept that you're amazing the way you are. Imagine if people took that to heart and tried to take that lesson out into the world and apply it to their lives. It would be disastrous for them. They would just get hit with like failure after failure. It used to be such a much more inspiring message that movies gave you about the power of self-improvement, of rising to challenges and struggling. And maybe failing and making mistakes, but learning from them and becoming better as a result. That was a great thing to teach people because that's how you progress in life, to try and do that, it's not only is it patronizing, but it's really counterproductive for people.
Especially given that a lot of the lessons that people learn about how to exist in the world come from popular media. Especially given that these are movies that ostensibly are supposed to help people who perhaps don't come from the perfect sort of background. Maybe they haven't had an amazing parental household, giving them all of the worldly wisdom that they should do to be able to navigate through. Okay, so you are going to, in some regard, like as a movie studio, be a surrogate parent almost, or like a sage or a grandparent in some regard, to pass down. These are some kind of timeless truths that you can hold on to. And the timeless truth is, if you're a 15-year-old mixed race investigator coming out of high school with a talking dog for a friend, get naked in the shower and go to a strip club.
That seems to be the lesson.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.